All right, so today we're going to be doing a deep dive into some IELTS reading strategies.
Okay.
We're looking at this YouTube video called Understand IELTS Reading in 30 Minutes.
Yeah.
Which, just to warn you guys, it is chock full of information.
It is.
So many tips.
A lot of tips.
It's going to be hard for us to even get to all of them.
Yeah.
But we're going to do our best to
Absolutely
break
right.
down the most important ones and the things that really stuck out to us as being like, oh, this is a really cool way to approach the test.
Yes.
So the first thing that struck me was the way that they start out by talking about mindset.
Yeah.
Like, they don't just immediately jump into, like, tips and tricks. It's like how to approach the whole test strategically.
Absolutely.
Which I think is really important because, like, I remember when I was starting for this test, I was just like, give me the tips, give me the tricks, tell me how to hack it.
Right.
But actually taking a step back and being like, okay, what's my overall approach?
Yeah.
How am I going to manage my time? How am I going to read these instructions carefully?
It's action. Like, they even talk about that.
Yep.
Like, making sure you don't go over the word count.
Absolutely.
Which seems so basic, but,
right.
Under pressure.
It's easy to forget.
You can totally.
You're focused on the content, and then you forget, oh, shoot, I can only write 2 words here.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So I thought that was a really good point.
Very good foundation.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into this other thing that they talk about, which is the where before what principle.
Yes.
Which basically means, like, figuring out where the answer is in the text.
Right.
Before you really get bogged down in, like,
the content.
Understanding the content, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting because I was like, well, what if you misinterpret the question?
Yeah.
If you're just, like, skimming for keywords.
It's a balance, right? You need to understand the gist of the question.
Right.
So that you're looking in the right area.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, you don't want to get too lost in the details too early.
So it's like targeted skimming.
Yes.
Combined with targeted skimming.
A solid understanding of, like, what the question is asking.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So they talk about a lot of different question types.
They do.
12, I think. Which
Whoa.
is a lot.
It is a lot.
To go through in detail.
Yeah. It's good they made a 30-minute video.
Yeah.
Exactly, to try and fit it all in.
Maybe we can just pick a couple that, like, really stand out.
Absolutely.
As being ones that people tend to struggle with.
For sure.
Or that we ourselves have struggled with.
Yes.
So one that comes to mind for me is those true, false, not given questions. Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Those can be tricky.
So tricky.
Yeah.
I remember one time I spent, like, way too long on a not given question.
Oh, yeah.
Like, convinced that the answer was hidden somewhere in the passage.
Yeah.
And it just, like, wasn't there.
You go down a rabbit hole.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I feel like the video had some really good advice for that.
They did.
Which was, like, don't get emotionally invested.
In finding the evidence.
Yes. Don't be afraid to let it go.
Yeah.
If you can't find it.
If you're spending too much time.
Move on.
Just move on.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, good life advice in general.
It is.
Okay, so.
Good life advice.
What about matching headings?
Yes.
Those are always a challenge.
Yes, they can be tricky.
Because you have to, like.
Understand the essence of each paragraph.
Yeah, and then, like, summarize it concisely.
Yes.
Which is hard.
It is.
Especially under pressure.
Absolutely.
So what do they say about that?
So they had a really cool technique that I had never heard of before.
Really?
Which is to write your own headings for each paragraph.
Before you even look at the options. Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually brilliant.
I thought so too.
Because I feel like sometimes I'm just like staring at those headings being like, I don't even know where to begin.
Exactly.
So if
you've already
engaged with the text.
Yeah. And you've come up with your own idea of what the main point is.
Right.
Then it's just a matter of matching.
Yeah.
Rather than
so much easier.
Creating from scratch.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, so we've tackled true, false, not given, and matching headings.
Yeah.
What else is there?
What else? It's much easier. Yeah. So I really like that tip.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try that one.
Yeah.
Did they give any advice on, like, how to actually write those headings?
Yes. They said to focus on...
Because I feel like I tend to get wordy.
Right.
And those headings are always so concise.
Yes. They said to focus on keywords and phrases that really capture the essence of the paragraph.
Okay.
Like, almost imagine you were writing a headline.
Got it.
For a news article.
Okay, so impactful.
Yeah.
To the point.
To the point.
No tangents allowed.
No tangents.
Yeah, okay. I can see how that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's so many question types we could talk about.
I know.
But maybe just one more before we move on.
Yes. What about multiple choice?
Yes.
Those can be tricky, too.
Yeah, because sometimes you get stuck between two options that both seem plausible.
Yes.
And you're like, which one is it?
Yeah, and you're like reading it over and over again.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So what did they say about that?
So they had a really good tip for that, too.
Okay.
And they said, instead of just looking for the right answer,
Okay.
try to eliminate the definitely wrong answers.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So it's like a process of deduction.
Yes. Like Sherlock Holmes.
Ooh, I like that.
Solving a mystery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're looking for clues
Yes.
that reveal the answer's flaws.
Exactly.
Like what kind of clues?
So they said things like contradictions with the passage.
Okay.
If the answer is too broad or too narrow,
Right.
or if it misinterprets the question's intent.
Interesting.
So you're really thinking critically about each option.
So it's not just like
Yeah.
passively accepting the option. You're like, oh,
Yeah. Interrogating them.
exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah,
Okay, so we've talked about a few different question types,
we have.
but I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about time management
It's
because
very important.
this is a huge part of the IELTS reading test.
It is, you only have 60 minutes
60 minutes.
to answer 40 questions.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure.
So how do they recommend we manage our time?
Well, first they said you need to understand your own personal reading pace.
Okay.
Some people read faster than others.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Totally.
Just know your strengths and weaknesses and plan accordingly.
So like if you're a slower reader,
Mm-hmm.
maybe allocate a bit more time
Right.
to certain question types.
Yeah.
And if you're like a speed demon,
Then you might have extra time to double check
Yeah.
your answers.
I like that.
Yeah.
So it's all about like personalization.
Yes. Very much so.
Okay.
Yeah.
But even with practice,
Right.
like those 60 minutes can feel really intense.
Oh, yeah.
Do they have any other like specific time-saving tips?
They did. They had a really good one.
Yep.
They said to divide the 60 minutes into 3 20-minute chunks,
Oh,
one for each passage.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So it helps you stay on track.
Yeah, it's like setting mini deadlines for yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. And then within each 20-minute chunk, you can further allocate your time
Okay,
based on the question types.
got it.
So, for example, you might spend a bit more time on matching headings,
Right.
knowing that it'll save you time on subsequent questions.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So it's all about being like strategic,
Yes.
intentional
Strategic and intentional.
with your time. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Take control.
I'm feeling calmer already just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like I used to get so stressed out during that reading section.
Yeah, it can be very stressful.
But like knowing that I have a plan
yes.
and like
A system.
a system, yeah, that makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have
We've talked about mindset. We've talked about
specific question types.
specific question types, time management.
Time management.
But beyond all of these like practical strategies,
Yeah.
is there anything else that the video emphasized
Yeah.
that could help our listeners like approach this section
Yeah.
with more confidence
Yeah.
and maybe even a little bit of joy?
Right. I think the video really emphasizes this idea of engaging with the text actively,
Okay.
not just passively absorbing information.
So it's not just like speed reading
Yeah.
or memorizing facts. It's like,
It's about thinking critically
yeah,
about what you're reading, making connections,
questioning assumptions.
questioning assumptions. Exactly.
And I think sometimes we get so caught up in the pressure of the test
yeah.
that we forget to actually enjoy reading.
Right?
You know, it's like we turn it into this chore.
It becomes a chore
Yeah, instead of like
instead of an opportunity.
an opportunity to learn something new.
Back down our minds. Yeah, and when you're engaged with the material, you're more likely to remember it.
Right.
You're more likely to understand it.
And enjoy it.
And enjoy it,
I
exactly.
think the difference between forcing yourself to eat vegetables
Right.
and savoring a delicious meal.
Exactly.
So it's like turning IELTS reading from a dreaded obligation
yes.
into like a feast for the mind.
I love that. A feast for the mind.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
So I think that's a beautiful note to end on.
Yeah.
We've talked about strategy. We've talked about techniques.
Mindset. All the things.
But ultimately, it comes down to approaching this challenge with the right attitude.
Absolutely.
So, dear listener, go forth and conquer that IELTS reading section
yes.
with a newfound sense of confidence and maybe even a little bit of excitement.
And a little bit of joy.
And joy. Yes.
Yeah.
And remember, as you delve into those passages, allow yourself to be captivated
Yes.
by the stories, by the arguments,
Mm.
by the sheer beauty of language. Happy reading and best of luck on your IELTS journey.
Yes. Good luck.